Our next speaker is Oliver Tinoco, a current Skyline student who's transferring to SF State next semester for a major in communication studies and ethnic studies, and who has been a fierce advocate for LGBTQ plus and Latin students here on campus. He leads Saga, the Sexuality and Gender Aligned Student Club, and FIRE, an undocumented student advocacy group.
Hi all, thank you for having me. My name is Oliver EliasTinoco, and like Kat said, I have been a Skyline at college for the last 3 years now. As a brown queer student on campus, I occupy a number of identities that sort of make up the majority of Skyline student population, and I have firsthand experience with some of the issues raised here tonight, which is why I think it's important to bring attention to the areas where we see SMCCD having a really big disconnect with. On the list of issues raised, one in particular that I have been impacted by is the existence of untransparent policies on class cancellations. A personal example, last semester, there were only a handful of classes left that I had to take in order to graduate, including an elective in literature. Now, I had chosen to take Lit 370, which is a course that focuses on readings and literature centered around Latina culture and development in the United States. It was not until a few weeks before classes started and long after fall registration that we were made aware that the class was being canceled for failing to hit the minimum number of enrolled students. Now, what was especially interesting to know about it was that this was coming directly after Skyline had attempted to become an HSI. For those who don't know, that means a Hispanic serving institution, but had to reevaluate and cancel those plans based on input from a group of Latina student leaders and faculty, of which I was a part of in collaboration with Dr. Cesar Cruz, who is a notable Latina social justice advocate in California and in the community college system. And during those conversations, the point was raised that Skyline was failing to hire enough staff and faculty of Latina identity when 30% of our students are Latina. It was also talked about how Skyline failed to provide the necessary classes geared towards those students belonging to minoritized groups, in this case, our Latina and Hispanic students. Now, this is not the first time this has happened at Skyline, as it's the same reason that the queer literature class had to stop being offered because of the restraints put on professors and their specific cohorts. So to know that these conversations happened with people working actively in administrative positions, but then see the cancellation of classes solely based on the number of students enrolled in the class still being enforced and affecting the only literature class on the theme of Latina experiences was more than disheartening. You can probably imagine. The reality is that as like a student who belongs to and is an ally of other groups like our undocumented queer, Black, brown, and Latina students, I simply do not feel that the way funding is structured and presented to us is as transparent or quote unquote equitable as it needs to be. You cannot exist on a campus championing diversity and inclusivity that then fails to uphold those two pillars on a day-to-day basis. Just another example is the way that Skyline specifically was only recently able to figure out the budget to allow the Dream Center to hire a position for a student leader and assistant in the office. And the Dream Center is only now starting to ask for new materials and new technology, but these computers should have been changed and replaced years ago, according to conversations had with the tech department on campus. I started feeling frustrated and honestly, more than anything, disappointed that they're able to collect so much funding and resources, but completely fail at pouring it back in directly to the campus and to the programs and students that need it the most. Ultimately, it just creates that sort of environment where I think students are starting to feel as though the school that supposedly embraces us and champions celebrating their students is doing it all in vain. It is at its most basic and most simple a matter of putting your money where your mouth is, and that's just not happening um, across the board in SMCCD and this campus specifically.